Hey there everyone, my name is Brenna Hanley, and this year I did a study in my classroom on the flipped classroom method. Right now I teach English language arts in high school, and this study was about the flipped classroom method in the 9th grade English language arts classroom. What is the flipped classroom method? The flipped classroom method takes the traditional classroom teaching method and flips it. In a traditional teaching method, students receive information from their teacher through lectures and readings in the classroom. They go home and do homework to apply that knowledge. In the flipped classroom method, students receive information at home through video lectures and apply their knowledge and skills in the classroom through project-based and inquiry-based learning. The teacher in the flipped classroom, instead of spending their time giving whole group instruction, is spending class time with individuals and small groups, correcting mistakes or filling gaps in knowledge. Despite the term flipped classroom circulating before Bergman and Sams published their landmark book, Flip Your Classroom, Reach Every Student Every Day, Bergman and Sams implemented the flipped method in their high school chemistry classroom. While other research is very strict in their definition of a flipped classroom, Bergman and Sams are quite flexible. One of the main themes is providing teachers with tools and resources they can use to implement a flipped method in their own classrooms. Their book details many instances in which students were engaged in learning and performed better using the flipped method. In fact, the book details a flipped mastery method in which students can achieve a higher level of learning than what the classroom can actually provide. Bergman and Sams, as well as other researchers, warn that the implementation process for a flipped classroom does require more planning and time from the teacher. However, according to the research, students are doing more work in class than they had previously to the flipped classroom method. Keeping parents, other teachers, and administrators involved in the implementation process is key to assisting in a well-run flipped classroom environment. I decided to study the flipped classroom method in my classroom because I noticed that every year, despite our schedulers' best efforts, students were put into my class with varying levels of skills and knowledge, and I often struggled to differentiate my curriculum to suit the needs for each individual student. This often led to students giving up or not feeling challenged. As a teacher at an ever-expanding high school, the flipped classroom method claimed to allow me more time with each individual student in my classroom. According to the research, the flipped method can reach every student every day and provide differentiation for students who are at varying levels of skills and knowledge. Although much of the research I found was based in science, math, and social studies classrooms, my goal in this study was to determine if the flipped classroom method would have a positive effect on student engagement and academic performance in the English language arts classroom. In this study, I used a mixed methods data collection approach. Quantitative data was collected from students' previous semester benchmark test scores, student grades, and analytic data from YouTube. Qualitative data was collected from student feedback, classroom observations, and video comments. Throughout the study, data was collected through YouTube Analytics, weekly formative and summative assessments, and weekly student surveys, comments, and written and verbal feedback. The study focused on 2 separate groups out of all of my classes. 1 regular English classroom and 1 honors English classroom. Students' academic achievement in both regular and honors English language arts classroom differed slightly at the start of the flipped classroom method. In group 1, students' individual and class averages dipped shortly after the start of the flipped model. In group 2, class averages also dipped slightly, but not nearly as significantly as group 1. Group 1 did experience a change of environment in their classroom shortly after the start of the study. Despite this dip, class averages increased consistently over the course of the next few weeks. Group 1's change of environment could have had an adverse effect on their learning and was completely unexpected in this study. Group 2 does not experience an environmental change, and the class averages stay pretty consistent for the sample data set. Students in Group 1 often stated they felt less prepared for the benchmark test than students in Group 2. Students in both groups performed between 40% and 60% of understanding and applying the concepts in the benchmark test. Despite the decrease at first, both groups showed a particularly high engagement with the video lectures provided in the flipped classroom method. In fact, Group 1 showed a greater engagement on average than Group 2. Overall, students seemed to understand most of the concepts immediately after watching the videos and a few weeks after application in the classroom. Student application of understanding suffered slightly. Most ELL students seem to have a harder time applying information or internalizing concepts. The understanding for these concepts can best be seen in this graph, showing that students seem to understand the concepts after watching the video. The struggle for application is best seen here, where students seemed to have a harder time applying the information on the benchmark test at the end of the unit. In this study, we see that students are highly motivated to engage with their teacher in video lectures over someone they are unfamiliar with, and eager to engage with video lectures over classroom live lectures. Students also showed an improvement in academic skill after a brief decrease. Students' grades increased significantly by the end of the study. Additionally, I believe this study is very significant to add to the overall research for the flipped classroom method. Because other research has been conducted in other subject areas, this study in the secondary English language arts classroom in a public high school in the United States is quite significant for other teachers to continue to learn from. One of my research questions in this particular study was, how does the flipped classroom method affect students' achievement on test scores? Students showed an increase of knowledge and awareness of specific concepts presented in the video lectures. It is the application of knowledge where students seem to struggle. I believe that the flipped method can still have a positive effect on students, but the application needs to be emphasized, not just in the video lectures, but in the class with the teacher present. My second question in this study was, how can the flipped classroom method enhance student engagement in the English language arts classroom? Students showed a positive engagement with the video lectures and additionally with the content in the 9th grade ELA classroom. While there were not many content-related comments on video lectures, there were more content-related discussions in class, and students felt more knowledgeable about certain subjects when applying them in class. In both groups, students engaged in video lectures readily and with little resistance, and gave positive feedback about the video lectures used in the classroom. Many students even seemed more prepared to engage and understand the concepts and curriculum in the class. Moving forward, there are some changes that I think that should be made to this study on the flipped classroom method. Teachers should be aware that the flipped classroom method does require a lot of time and effort outside of planning lessons, grading work, and teaching in the classroom. Video lectures are received better by students if their own teacher or a teacher that they're familiar with is one that is making them. Pre-planning videos months in advance can significantly affect how you present them to your students. However, it is important to adjust what you say in your videos in order to reach your audience better. Moving forward, I would like to predict student groups a little bit better and vary student study groups according to skill level and engagement. Even though YouTube is a great free resource for teachers to use to distribute their video lectures, teachers need to keep in mind that some students do not have internet access, either at school or at home. So distribution of the videos needs to be consistent and in a way that all students can access. In the video lectures themselves, I noticed that students often needed text and images in order to assist them in either taking notes or understanding the concepts better. Taking into account previous year student scores as well as previous year teaching methods can often reflect how a student will engage with the content and how they will perform in your class. Setting expectations for students is very important, but it is even more important to set those expectations for other teachers, your administration, and your parents. And last but not least, I'd like to focus more on emphasizing the application of their knowledge in the classroom moving forward. The flipped method is two parts. The first is the video lectures, and they are honestly the hardest part of the flipped classroom method. Creating video content for your students to utilize outside of class is a huge part of that flipped method, but it is only 50%, considering the other half of the flipped method is the time you spend in class focusing on application with your students. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation on the flipped classroom method. I'm going to continue to use the flipped method in my classroom, which means that there are going to be more videos on my channel that go into the 9th grade and higher levels of the English Language Arts curriculum. This is a little bit different than the other videos in my channel, but if you would like to see some of the content I've created for my students or utilize some of the videos that I've created for the 9th grade English Language Arts curriculum, please feel free to watch those videos or share them with someone that could use them. Thank you so much. Have a great day.